Hi guys, welcome back aboard our 44-foot hurricane damage DIY catamaran project boat. In this week's video I get to experience the joy of the old saying, every 5-minute project is a snap bolt away from being a 3-hour job. And I've already got 2 snap bolts, so I guess we're already up to a 6-hour job. The MDF I've got glued up here is for an upcoming video, so let's get this out of here and then I can show you the bane of my existence. If everything goes according to plan, then I'll need this MDF later today, and if everything works out, then you guys will see a very cool video in the next couple of weeks. I've picked up a screw extractor set and some taps and dies, but I'm a little bit hesitant to go full potato on this heat exchanger. This is a $2,500 part, so it'd be awesome if I could reuse the old one. And I'm afraid the bolts in there are too corroded for me to be able to extract them with one of those extractor sets. The kicker here is I have no idea what the inside of this looks like before I get the ends off. So I might very well go through all the trouble of getting this opened, only to find out that it's hooped on the inside. But let's just rewind for a quick second and see how I ended up in this delightful situation. Last week I went through all of the engine parts that came with the boat and found the 2 heat exchangers. One of the engines on the boat was submerged when the boat partially sank, and I figured I'd start with the heat exchanger that hadn't been underwater, as I suspected that would be the easiest one to take apart. It came apart easy and only took about 15 minutes. Now for the other heat exchanger. Some bugs had already claimed that one as their own, and the bolts were hopelessly stuck. I tried cycling heat and penetrating oil, but was ultimately unsuccessful. I filled a container with some PB plaster and submerged the nuts and let that sit. If you guys have never seen the inside of a heat exchanger before, it's one of those things that are simple, but they look really cool. Not every heat exchanger has tubes like this one, but they all work the same. It's 2 liquids passing by each other without actually intermingling. One becomes hotter, the other becomes colder. Needless to say, it's very important to keep those 2 liquids separated. Now the tubular tube element here, I can get a new one of these for I think something like $700. So if this is badly corroded, that's not the end of the world. What I'm more nervous about are the flanges in here. If those mating surfaces are pitted or corroded, then that's a bit of an issue. I have soaked my problem child here in PB Blaster for the last 4 days. I've also cycled heat on the bolts and I have tapped or shocked them with a hammer. To be honest, I don't have high hopes, but let's give it a try. Oh, we've got some movement. That's not bad. So far, so good. There is some corrosion over here, but we won't really know how bad it is until I get the O-ring out. Dang it, I thought for sure that one was going to come out. Well, that's another snap one. But it's really no great mystery. These are basically corroded halfway through even before I touched them, so yeah. Ooh. Yeah, baby! The good news is, I don't think the corrosion is that bad. I think this still has some life left in it. The bad news is we have 1, 2, 3, 4 snapped bolts. I'm gonna give the problem child here a few more days to soak. There's no harm in that. And yeah, if I can't get the ones that are proud of the surface to come out with the vice grips, then there's definitely no point in trying the screw extractors. If more soaking, heating, and tabbing doesn't do the job, well, I am a little bit limited in tools here in the under the boat workshop. I don't have a drill press, I don't have a mill, anything like that. So if I can't get them out that way, I'm probably gonna see if I can find a machine shop. Sometimes when life hands you partially squeezed lemons, it's nice to be able to take a little snack break. And thanks to this video sponsor, Ecoflow, I can do just that. This is the Ecoflow Glacier. It is the world's first 3-in-1 fridge freezer with an integrated ice maker. Yes, an ice maker. That is such a cool feature. The Glacier has a powerful 120 watt compressor that makes it fast and efficient as a fridge, but it also means you can have ice cubes in as little as 12 minutes. It has 38 liters of capacity. That means you can fit something like 60 cans of soda or a small mountain of food. Do you want to bring your fridge to the beach or maybe on an overnight boat trip? Don't worry, you can get an integrated battery for the Glacier. That will power the fridge for around 40 hours, keeping your food fresh. With the integrated battery, the fridge can also act as a battery bank, allowing you to charge, for instance, your laptop off of the 100 watt USB Type-C connection. If you want to stay off-grid for longer than the battery allows, then don't worry, you can also connect a solar panel directly to the fridge that'll also charge the battery. We've been looking for an extra fridge to bring to the Bahamas in April when we go there to reset Athena's cruising permit. With the addition of the Glacier, we can now bring all the food we need for our stay. That means we don't need to hunt around on remote islands for groceries, leaving more time for fun stuff like diving. For more information about the Glacier and a great deal, check out the link in the description. A great big thank you to Ecoflow for sponsoring this week's video and for keeping me in a never-ending supply of ice cubes. The next morning I returned to the PB Blaster spa and removed the 2 raw water pumps. A new one of these is around $300, so I figured it'd be well worth it to spend a bit of time to clean them up and rebuild them. Although there are some bigger tools I don't have access to yet, the tool trailer is starting to become well stocked. Any job is easier with the correct tool, and one of the big upsides to being in the US is that tools seem cheaper than back in Denmark. I removed the circlip, but was expecting a little bit of a battle getting the nut off of the shaft. That proved to not be the case, but be aware it is a left-handed thread. With the shaft removed, the full glory of the bearings was revealed. They can best be described as a pepper grinder trying to grind rocks. Definitely worth replacing. There's a little lip seal inside of the housing that I definitely also want to replace. With the shaft removed, I could tap it out from the back, but I wanted to try and remove it from the side like you would if the shaft was still installed. Easy peasy, and the housing looks in perfect shape. With a quick tap from Mr. Hammer, I removed the first bearing from the shaft. The other bearing took a little bit more persuading, but eventually surrendered. Ta-da! A fully disassembled raw water pump. There's nothing wrong with the shaft. A quick lick with a bit of emery cloth won't fix, so I decided to clean up the housing. The contrast between the freshly cleaned pump and the untouched one is pretty obvious. This was a very rewarding way to save a few $100s. The process was the same for the second pump. The only noticeable difference was the shape of the bearings. Yikes. It is a couple of days later, and I've gotten my hands on a pair of rebuild kits off of Amazon. These should contain all the guts we pulled out of the water pumps, except for the shaft. The kit also comes with a very nice exploded diagram, parts list, and some instructions here. Use press, vise, or C-clamp to remove the install shaft. No hammer, please. I'll no hammer you. I used the hammer. I think it's perfectly fine as long as you don't damage the shaft. Getting everything put back together again should be fairly simple. It's the reverse of taking it apart, and the incessant beeping from the dump next door seems to be extra loud today, so let me pop in some headphones and we can cue up some music. here we are, 1 and 2 rebuilt water pumps. These should be good as new for many hours now, and I think the rebuild kits were about 50 bucks each. A new pump is, I think, 350, something like that. So yeah, we've saved a little bit of money. I am fully aware that I might have been able to piece together my own rebuild kit a little bit cheaper by finding the bearings myself and the lip seal and so on. But I also needed the cover plate, so the only thing I didn't really like about this rebuild kit was the fact that one of the cover plates had scratches on both sides, which is a little bit unfortunate. I think I can use the side I've got facing in now, but this side, I don't think so. If there is one thing that drives me fucking nuts, it is when I'm trying to work somewhere where it's windy and my stuff, whatever it is, if it's fiberglass or parts or whatever, keeps blowing away. And that was very much the deal during the water pump rebuild. I was able to save you guys a bunch of swearing in Danish and English due to video editing magic, but let's find something else to do for the rest of the day. I've got this pile of old copper wiring from the boat here. It's tinned copper, and I got a bunch of comments on a previous video saying that this would be worth money. I kind of doubt that. The reason is that it's got the insulation on there and it's tinned, so I'm afraid it's not really going to be worth much of anything. But there's an easy way to find out, because the recycling scrappy yardy thingy is right up the street. So if we load all of this up into my little wheelbarrow thingy, then we can find out. Perhaps I should explain real quick why I think my pile here is basically worthless. Because when we went up there to the metal scrappy yard place to get rid of a bunch of the stainless that came with the boat that was all mangled, or big sections of the mast we got rid of up there, as soon as there was 2 different types of metal, or as soon as there was, for instance, a little plastic grommet on some of the stainless, that stainless was instantly considered just scrap instead of stainless. And this has both the insulation on there and it has tin on the copper. I guess I could strip off all of the insulation. That would be insanely time consuming. And I don't think it's really worth it, because even if I was left with clean, bright copper, I think the price per pound is something like $3. For those playing along at home, this is the size of the pile, and before we head up there, I'm gonna get rid of any bit of old loom and stuff like that. I haven't put any loom in the bag, and also I took out a bunch of coax cables and stuff like that, so everything that's in the bag is just regular tinned cable. The bag is in the cart. The weirdest thing that's in the bag is probably this stuff. It's pretty heavy stuff. Maybe it was from an SSB or something like that. But if we open it up, it is just regular tinned copper inside. I'm going to leave the camera here because the last time we brought the camera up there, the guy that was working up there thought that was pretty dang weird. So yeah, we'll leave you guys here. I'll be right back. Turns out my I'll be right back was a little bit of a lie. It is the next morning. I got up there and they told me if I cut the ends off of the cable, so all the ring terminals and other junk that was on the ends, then it would be a much higher price. With the ring terminals on there, it would be scrap, which I think he said was 6 cents per pound. And after having chopped off the ends, I think it was, well, I don't remember the name for it, but I think I got a little over $1 per pound. I dropped off 55 pounds and got $1.12 per pound for a total of $61.60. As much as it pains me, I think I gotta admit defeat on this one and say that you guys were correct and I was wrong. I think I spent a little over an hour on the cables, just chopping the ends off, cleaning them off, bringing them up there and stuff that I wouldn't have spent if I had just taken them to the city dump. But 60 bucks an hour, that's pretty freaking good. And also there's the added benefit of that copper now getting recycled. We still have some old cables left in the boat I can yoink out of there and sell for delicious money. Maybe there's another 60 bucks in there, something like that. I definitely don't think we're going to be able to retire on our copper fortune. But yeah, like I said, definitely worth the effort. I took my newly acquired copper fortune to Harbor Freight and spent a small fraction of it on a grease gun. because what I need to put our props back together again showed up a couple of days ago. We've got a bunch of grease and the few fasteners I was missing, as well as quite possibly the sexiest anodes I have ever seen. I know you can get little grease guns where you can just thread these directly on there, which would have been freaking awesome, but I couldn't find one of those short notice. But that's okay. I believe we can use this guy as a bulk grease gun. A bulk fill grease gun can be used without cartridges, and I swear I read on the website that that was the case for this gun. After having gotten some schmoo inside of the squeezy thing, Captain Dum Dum promptly mistook the vent for the connection to the squirty end. The quote of the day is, "He who laughs at himself never runs out of things to laugh at." Anywho, I forged ahead with the two darlings. Assembly is incredibly easy. There's some little marks that you need to line up, but other than that, I don't believe there's any way of messing this up. Well, maybe short of putting the blades on the wrong way round, the soft curve needs to face aft. Having just said that, as you can see here, I put one of them on the wrong way around, but it didn't feel like it lined up quite right, and luckily I spotted my silly mistake. After having placed the other half of the hub back on the prop and installed the little circlip, I found these two adjustment screws in my plastic container. These are how the pitch of the prop is adjusted. In my case, L equals 2. Simply meaning, in my case, the number 2 was stamped on the screw that came out of the hole stamped L. And this is where I realized I hadn't done good enough of a job of cleaning the props. There was some old grease left behind, and when I took the prop apart to clean that, I found a tiny sliver of metal. I definitely don't want anything like that floating around inside of my expensive props. Cue another trip to Harbor Freight to pick up an ultrasonic cleaner, another doohickey I've always been curious about. I just noticed something that must be a thorn in the side of all the Freedom Unit lovers. The outside of the box here says 176 Fahrenheit max temperature, right? The little display here only goes to 80, so the display is metric. As much as I like teasing the Freedom Unit people, I do hope the mic is not picking up the sound of this thing, because it is a little bit like fingernails on a chalkboard. This being my first ultrasonic cleaner, I don't really know what to expect, but it's been half an hour. The water in here is nice and hot, and it's definitely changed color. There was a warning in the instructions to not put multiple things in the cleaner at the same time, but I just made sure they were spaced out thoroughly. This is pretty freaking cool. It's definitely much cleaner than when I put it in there. I think this is well worth the effort. It seems like the cleaner did a great job of removing grease and grime. It did not remove the little bit of marine growth I didn't remove in here, but yeah, pretty cool. It took a while for the water to get really hot, which posed an interesting question. How do I get my parts out? Ah, yes, Captain Dum Dum strikes yet again. You simply pull out the blessed basket. Okie dokie. That is all of the parts cleaned, and yeah, I think the cleaner did a pretty good job. The stuff doesn't look quite like new, but it definitely seems cleaner than when I put it in there. As I was assembling the first prop, again, I started cleaning the second prop. Within a few minutes, I was ready to grease the first prop, so I placed it loosely back on the shaft to be able to manipulate the blades, only to find out that this grease gun does not seem to work as a bulk fill grease gun. That's not the end of the world. I can get my hands on a proper schmoo dispenser and get the props greased up later on. At least the props are fully assembled and ready to be installed. Short of my little grease gun mishap, we now have two props that are done. They're ready to go back on the shafts. I can easily just grease them once they're on there, so that's not a big deal. These are pretty expensive props, so I'm not going to put them back on the shafts until the very second before the boat goes back in the water. We'll store these somewhere nice and secure. Before ending this video, I want to say a great big thank you to everybody who sent stuff off of our Amazon wish list. Look at this. I won't have to buy sandpaper for years. I think I have some more back aboard Athena, and I wouldn't be surprised if I have enough sandpaper now to actually finish the refit of the catamaran. Of course, there are also people that sent fiber discs. I definitely have enough of those to finish the refit. And the same goes for oscillating multi-blade tools and a few other consumables. I feel so lucky. Thank you so much, guys. Somebody also figured out how to send stuff that's not on the wish list, like, for instance, 400 lens wipes. There you go. Nice and clean. In next week's video, I am going to be making the female molds I'll need to vacuum infuse new hatches for our tramp ramp. And those new hatches are going to look exactly like these test MDF ones, and these are based off of a 3D scan. I hinted at that in a previous video, but that is a really cool project for next week's video. Let's end this week's video on that little bit of a cliffhanger, but not before wishing everybody happy holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you want to call it. I am a little bit confused about the publishing schedule for the videos because there's a lot going on right now, but I think this one comes out on the 22nd. And if that's true, well, then I still have time to wish everybody happy holidays. If not, and it comes out after, then I'm sorry. But yeah, I hope to see all of you guys back here aboard the catamaran next week for yet more DIY fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below. And don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like. See you!